Well, it's back to work time. I'm doing my first run, and all I see is a lot of trees and a lot of leaves. See over there? It's hard to see, but everything is covered by. So, yeah, the hail was here. I'm just west of the airport, but this could have been from a heavy rain. But I'm pretty sure, yeah, there was some hail. See, like all those pine cones over there, yeah, trees took some beating. But I checked my Durango, and then this morning I checked the Jeep. I don't see any.
100 meters, turn left onto 4th Street Northwest.
Yeah, I don't see any more damage.
Turn left onto 4th Street Northwest.
They're saying that all this thing happened. We're lucky it's northern Calgary, but west side, not northeast. But I had a feeling, I knew it. When I was leaving, I was thinking, man, I'll be gone 9 days. What if there's something, and all my vehicles are on the open sky, and I have 2 tarps. But again, I live in a condo, right? So I reached out to the freaking manager. I said, are we allowed?
On 4th Street Northwest for 1.5 kilometers.
Are we allowed to put tarps over our vehicles? And he's like, oh, that's a good question. I'll have to get back to you. And he never did. But anyway, I thought, and I landed yesterday. I did my last video. I was up until 12:30, in the 30 minutes past 12 already in the morning, doing the last video because I wanted to get it up. So I just show my return. I did video with the phone, and there's some cool views there. When we were landing in Calgary, it's at night, it's clear sky at when we broke through clouds, and the downtown just looked amazing, And so, yeah, so it's back to work. Driving on the proper side of the road, I'm sitting on the left. Don't have to grab the air to grab the steering wheel like I did over there.
400 meters, turn right onto 40th Avenue Northwest.
Yeah, John was saying you guys don't have trees. Like I'm driving on the left here, it's all trees, but of course it's a city. That's the big difference. Like he was saying that he hates London. London is not real England. He wished it would disappear from the face of the earth.
40th Avenue Northwest.
But I don't like living in super small towns. Like a village. I tried it, didn't work. So I like small cities.
Continue for 1.5 kilometers.
And Calgary, of course, is a huge city, but I live in Northeast, which feels like a suburb, and I feel fine. But I wasn't comfortable, when I lived in Toronto. 3 million, what is it like? Well, it's much bigger than Calgary, right? Those, I don't like those. But here, I don't know. We have lots of trees, lots of parks, and lots of bike paths, which, by the way, they don't have in England. And so cyclists have to go on the road, and truck drivers such as John really hate them for this. They call them road rats, which I was not too happy to hear since I'm a cyclist myself. But another road rat. But he was saying, the roads are very narrow, and so he was saying once he was stuck behind a girl on a bike for like 15 minutes because it was uphill. So she was doing like 3-5 miles per hour and he could not pass her because that's not cyclists' fault that the roads are so narrow. Like the roads are super narrow, like where he lives in the country, right? So he likes trees. They don't want to build up. They don't allow people to build houses. They want more nature, right? But that means that their roads, to be blunt, they suck. They're too narrow, no shoulders, and so cyclists, or road rats as they call them, they have to go on the road, and then you're stuck. So, you cannot have both. You cannot have good roads and nature all over the place, or woods, as they call it, right? So they like living in the woods. They don't complain about cyclists being on the road.
In
because
400 meters, your destination will be on the left.
You didn't build enough bike paths. Oh, and I asked him, I said, why you guys don't have bike pathways for for bikes, for cyclists. And John said, well, you cannot just build pathways everywhere. They would have to cut down.
Your destination is on the left.
They would have to cut down trees and stuff like that. So yeah, we don't want to kill trees. Then don't complain about cyclists. Riding 3 miles per hour. So, but anyway, so yeah, today's video I did those my impressions about England, but that was before I took the trip, right? And I realized that it might be useful for my viewers if I do a video, like trucker's perspective, because now I've been on the trip in the Scania with those interesting double-decker trailers. So I thought, yeah, I could do this. All right, I'm just here. I just dropped off a trencher, a little machine that digs trenches, and now I'm picking up some floodlights. So these are coming off rent. And the guy said, yeah, it's in, I called him, he said, yeah, it's in the front. And I see them, they're bright yellow. I'm guessing they had some kind of party or something here. So 2 floodlights and 1 50-foot extension cord. So now I'm just backing. Oh, there's some artificial ice over there. Yeah, so there was definitely probably some party. Anyway, let me continue. Let me go grab the lights and we'll continue in a second. Okay, picked up the lights, and they're much bigger than I expected, with a heavy foundation and 2 wheels. Like there's 2 metal stands and then 2 wheels, so if you tilt them you can move them. So they're pretty big, and one of them has the bolt missing on the action and on the axle, and so one wheel keeps falling off. So loading them was a lot of fun. Yeah, sorry, why there's so much light? Like the camera catches a lot of light, sorry. And so yeah, so I took that trip in Scania. So from the trucker perspective, let's say, what would it take for me as a Canadian driver to drive a lorry, as they call it, or a truck in England? Well, from what I've seen, for me, the most challenging, because you're on the wrong side of the road, from the American point of view, everything is mirror image of what you would do normally over here, right? So the most difficult spots for me, like I was, just thinking, how would I drive here? The most difficult spots were roundabouts, and of course they have a million roundabouts. They're very popular because it's just, but they have signs that give you, they tell you which way you're going in the roundabout. But still, they can be tricky if if you never drove a car or a truck with a steering wheel on the left. And then the other part was right-hand turns, because you're on the left, right? So for you, right-hand turn is the same as for us left-hand turn. So you have to yield to people from the opposite direction, which at first I'm like, what the heck? Why are we waiting? And he says, well, I'm turning over there to the right, so I have to yield to all these people. It takes a little bit of getting used to, though, what I'm trying to say. But yeah, tracks, from what I've seen, they all have, it's pretty cool, like all these Scanias, the number on the grill would be the horsepower. And typical I've seen was 450, 400, I think one was more than 450, but they're not that crazy powerful. Yeah, they say that over there you can buy like a 700 horsepower truck or lorry, but I did not see those. But yeah, that's super comfortable. One thing I really liked about that Scania is that it has, air suspension under the cab, and it felt like a train. Just so soft, it just bounces off. You don't feel cracks on the road. It's nice. But John was always saying some bad words about the transmission, because it's automatic with a clutch. So he was always trying not to stop fully. Let's say if there's a red light, he would just crawl, slowly, so that he doesn't have to use the clutch. And it's 12 speed. That Scania had a 12-speed automated transmission, so you had to use the clutch when you go into first gear or reverse. And yeah, all the bridges are much taller. So that particular trailer, the double-decker, we were moving, 2 of them, they were all 16 feet tall. And so they don't need any permits, and I don't think I saw many, like, I don't even remember. Did I see a single RGN? They don't even know what they are, because they use, what they call them, a low loader, which is kind of like a beefed up step deck with ramps in the back. Oh, when I was doing that video, I screwed up because there was a lot of wind noise. Those step deck, these low loaders I was showing, I found out later they were all extendable. So it's nice, and because the height there is legal height is 16 feet. So these step decks, they work pretty much, they're as useful as RGNs, because you don't have to be super low, right? Because again, they have no bridges. So when you're in a low loader, the only danger is the road rats. Road rats is the real danger of a British trucker or lorry driver. But man, they made them, they hate them. Oh, another road rat, look, road rat. And I'm like, can you please stop calling them that? I ride a bicycle myself. I wouldn't want somebody calling me a road rat. But again, give me a bike pathway. Why would I be on your road in front of you if I could go on a bike pathway, right? And so, if you remember, I did like a long ride in a bike, where I went like 26 kilometers one way, and I was on the highway. Like, I don't want to be on the highway, but there was no bike paths over there, so I was on the shoulder. But actually, John was saying he watched that video and he was wondering why I was so close to the line, where vehicles are. And you cannot see that probably in the video, but the shoulder had lots of small rocks or gravel, and those can cut your tires, and those rocks were on the right side of the shoulder, and that's why I was staying to the left, unfortunately closer to the traffic, because I didn't want to, I didn't want to have a flat tire, then I have to walk 20 kilometers, or call an Uber. By the way, speaking about Uber, so yesterday when I landed, so it's like 11:40 at night, so I call Lyft. It says 8 minutes away, and then 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and then I receive a message and it says, your driver is here. Look for this particular, it was some kind of a hybrid, Toyota hybrid, silver in color. He's here. I look around, I don't see him. I told him, gate 15 arrivals. Actually, I was at gate 16, so I walked, some 100 meters to gate 15. So I'm waiting for this guy, and then I get another message. It says, your driver is leaving in 4 minutes. Like, he's not there. So this idiot, when he was still on the approach to the airport, he clicked, I'm here, because you can do that, right? And then I'm guessing his plan was he would wait for me to cancel, and so finally he calls me, because I sent him a message, says, where are you? So he calls me, oh, I'm here, and I see he pulls up in the second lane because there's no spots, And so I throw my bag in the back, and I said, I also do Uber. I'm like, why are you doing this? Why did you hit that button? Because it says the driver is leaving. Like I was kind of panicking because there's so many people there, and the 4 minutes was up before he even showed up, and it said your driver is leaving. And so this guy says, oh, if you drive Uber, just drive Uber. I cannot proceed with you. Some Indian guy. I cannot proceed with you. And he starts canceling the trip on his phone. I'm already inside his car. Like, awful, And so I said, okay. So fine. I said, I'll find somebody else. So I grabbed my backpack, went inside, grabbed my big bag, slammed his thing shut, and there's a taxi stand right there. And of course, it's been a while since I used, real taxi, so, and there's a lady there, like a little dispatcher, that she calls the cars on the radio because there's not, no place to park, but they have a special parking spot for them. And I said, do they take credit cards? She says, yes. Okay. So wait maybe 3 minutes, I get into a taxi, the guy takes me there. But of course the difference was, and why more people use Uber and Lyft, because on Lyft, I remember it told me the charge would be, I think $17 or $20, something like that, but less than 20 bucks. This guy charged me $26, and the ride was only 7 kilometers. So these yellow taxi cabs, whatever they're called, they're definitely more expensive, so I would never take them again. Just next time, maybe try Uber driver instead of Lyft, but I don't know. This is the first time it happened to me. So the guy just cheated. Oh, I'm here. He's still a kilometer away, and then the time ran out. So yeah, I was just pissed off about this guy. And I couldn't leave him any bad reviews because that when I look on the phone again, it was gone. So he canceled the trip. But I think they're going to charge him for this. If you cancel after 4 minutes. Oh, he probably wrote, I know what he did. There's an option that says the rider did not show up. The passenger did not show up, so he can easily do that. The guy did not show up, so they will still pay him. Actually, I have to check my credit card. So if he said the rider did not show up, they will still charge me something like $4, and they'll pay him. So it's not a perfect system, because the driver can kind of like punish you if he does not like you, but he's an idiot. He should not be driving for Lyft. But anyway, so what else was different? So yeah, so roundabouts and I would say right turns are tricky over there. So diesel is very expensive. Pretty much everything is more than 2 times the price of what we pay here. That's why most of them drive the most popular vehicle would, like, for personal use, is a small, some kind of like mid-size SUV, I would say, like my Jeep, but with a small diesel engine. Like, we don't have stuff like that over here. Like John had a Vitara, Suzuki Vitara, which is not even made over here. 1.6 liter diesel. And then also for me as a trucker, I would have to get used to a total mix-up of systems for measurements. Right, so they say they don't have metric, but yeah, they use miles for distance and speed, so all the speedometers are in miles. So I would have to get used to that because, here I'm used to kilometers for distance and speed. But when they go to petrol station, as they call it, or gas or diesel station, everything is in liters, right? Which is why you have liters and then you have miles. But when asking about weights, he said pounds don't mean anything to them, so they never use pounds for truck weights, which is again kind of funny, So they have miles for speed, but they don't like using pounds for weight. Actually, yeah, I mentioned this in the gym. in the gym, you go on the scale, you have a choice. It's either stones and pounds or kilos, but you cannot have just pounds. I'm like, what the heck is a stone? You know, like I heard about it, but I thought it was like all, you know, gone 2 centuries ago. No, they still use stones and pounds. So that would be a bit challenging, right? So I mean, so when they talk about weights, like load weights, gross weight, they use metric tons. And John said, well, to me it kind of like sounds funny when you say metric, because all our tons are metric. And I said, well, like in US and Canada, I have to be careful when using tons, because it can be a short ton, 2,000 pounds, or it can be a long ton or metric ton, you know. Typically, US, Canada, well, in Canada quite often actually they do use kilos. Like on the paperwork you might see, you know, kilograms. But these guys, they use tons. So he says the load would say 44.5 tons, which means 44,500 kilos. So, you know, it would take a few days to get used to all this, you know, different units and speed in miles and stuff like that. But of course, if you're an American driver, you only have to relearn the kilos for weight. Okay, I'm doing my next run. Still in the Ford F-350 diesel. And I'm going 57 clicks, over 30 miles. Like the sky is so bright. Oh, it's the sun over there, sorry. So over 30 miles to the very bottom of Calgary, and my delivery is 2 small frames of scaffolding, not 5x5 but 3x5, and 2 small braces, which are still 10 foot, but they're shorter than regular. So no decks, no casters. I double checked. I said, is there a mistake? They said no. So they just want these small frames and 2 braces. I'm guessing they already have large frames, so they just need to build extra 3 feet, which is fine by me. I'm paid by the hour. And so yeah, if you're in UK driving a truck like this on those tiny baby roads, you know, with no shoulders and road rats all over, people would probably curse at you, or I don't know, you would get arrested, you know. Because this one, I think, yeah, Ford is, what is it, 6.7 diesel? Yeah, my friend's Vitara was 1.6. Yeah, everything is bigger here. And by the way, one thing I noticed is that, you know, we would stop by a pub or a bar, you know, like for lunch or dinner, and of course they would have a beer, and I would have a beer, and it didn't taste as well, you know, as good as here. And so out of curiosity, I asked what the, you know, alcohol content was. And then, you know, if it's a draft beer, you can actually see on, you know, on the label with the name, it'll show you. And I see that they pretty much, very rarely you will find beer that has 5% alcohol. It's either like 4.8, 4.6, 4.4, some of it even like 3.8. So basically, if you own a pub or a liquor store, you're making a killing, because your beer is watered down compared to 5%. And so then I land in Chicago, and I thought I would have a beer, so I'm walking around the airport. Of course, it's all overpriced, crazy prices, but I didn't care. It's my last day of vacation. So I walked around, found one IPA, and then I found another one, which is actually we have here. It's called Hazy IPA. And I took a picture, I sent it to John in UK, because on the front it's at 6.7%. You know, so I sent him that photo and I said, you'll probably be arrested if they catch you with a beer like that in UK. You know? So that was my impression. If you want to drive trucks in UK and you're from Canada, US, you better get used to some weak ass beer. Prices were okay. I remember in pubs I was looking for how much it costs. It was not too crazy expensive, but at the airport, yeah, it was a bit nuts. You know, like a large can of beer was $12 US. And the guy says, "Here you go, Sergey." I'm like, "Wait, how do you know my name?" And then of course I see my name is on the credit card. And this guy, I think, was Polish because he said "Do widzenia" after, you know, "Do свидания," bye-bye. So he could read, he could understand, you know, Russian names. And what else is different? Let's say if you're a trucker from here and you go to work over there, well, all their trucks are much shorter, right? Because the roads are smaller, so it's harder to turn around or just turn, period. And so because these are all cabovers, I think I saw a long hood truck, or bonnet as they call it. I saw one Freightliner once. You know, like kind of like what I drive here, a 5-ton, but it was a semi-truck, like very small. But it stood out because all the trucks are cabovers, right? So they say the best one is Scania. Then of course you have Volvo. Many people like Volvo trucks. Peugeot, Renault. What else is that? MAN, German. They say MAN, but I say MAN because that's how you pronounce it in German. And so the wheelbase is way shorter than, let's say, comparable American trucks or Canadian. So it will be much easier to turn, especially since when they empty, from what I've seen, pretty much all of their trucks have a tag axle in the back. And so they raise it, right? But in UK, they have a tandem axle in the back, whereas in Europe, they only have one axle. Right, so that's a difference. Actually, I was surprised, you know, when I saw their trucks in UK. I said, I thought you guys only had 5 axles, 2-axle truck, 3-axle trailer with super single tires. And John said, no, that's in France and over there, Netherlands, Norway. He says, we have tandem and 3-axle trailer. So he says we can do, I think he mentioned gross was 44 metric tons, I think. So basically they can do a bit more than European truckers because they don't have as many axles. But again, there's a tag axle, right? So you can lift it. Boy, and all the tires, I mentioned this in that road trip video when we went on in East Scania, that I was looking at tires and wheels, and the tires, so axles have much higher rating than typical trucks here. Like I think it was the front was 11,000 kilos, the drive axle, the middle one was 8,500, and then the tag was 7,000, something like in kilograms, which is pretty good. So you can do some heavy loads. The sleepers, I didn't see any big sleepers because of course the country is not that big, but probably if they go to Europe, and gone for a couple of weeks, then they'll probably give you a truck with a large sleeper. But from what I've seen, they just have basic, I don't know, 48-inch sleeper. So not very comfortable. But yeah, one cool thing about these cab overs, I thought you would have to tilt the cab to check your oil. No, there's a panel in the front. They don't have to tilt the cab. And they open that panel, they can check oil, check your coolant, windshield wash, which is way better than tilting the whole thing. But then, of course, the most important, the biggest difference between driving a truck here and a lorry in UK is the legal side. That over there you must have that kind of like credit card / license that you put into that machine that clocks your hours. And of course the rules are different. So if an inspector stops you, he asks you for that card, and that one records your speed, it records your hours, everything. So you cannot cheat. And so you give him this card, he can put it inside his machine, and he can see everything you've done for the past couple of weeks. I think even 20 days. And one thing I remember about daily driving is that you have to have a 45-minute break after either 4 hours or 4.5 hours. And you can split that break into 15 minutes and 30 minutes. And I think, you can. We took, when we were driving, we took 15 minutes, and then we drove, I think, for another couple of hours, and then we took 30 minutes. So yeah, pretty much you cannot cheat. They're pretty strict about this, so there's no e-logs, there's no paper logs. It's all recorded automatically. And many people would definitely not like the fact that all their trucks are governed. Like the maximum speed for trucks is 60 miles an hour, and all companies govern their trucks, to conserve fuel, even as low as 50 miles an hour, which is crazy. But typical, he said, would be 56, 57, sometimes 58. But that's it. You cannot, if you're stuck behind another truck, you cannot pass him, So that would not make many Canadian and American truckers happy. But one interesting fact is that they don't pay them by the mile like here. They pay them a salary or by the hour. And so I guess they had to do that because of the the low speed all the trucks are going for. So they paid either a salary or they paid by the hour. Like John, I was asking him how his setup works with his employer, because he only does it part-time, he's retired, he's pretty much retired. So he says he bills him for hours spent on the road, kind of like independent contractor, right? Even though he drives his truck, but he creates an invoice, I guess. He makes up an invoice. Let's say he worked, 40 hours as per that card. Oh, and his employer can see that, because it's his truck. He can go to a website, put in his username and password, and he see exactly where John is, where his truck is, how fast he's driving, how many hours of rest he had. And so, let's say when John bills him for, 40 hours on a trip, he can go and verify them, and that's how they work. And so that trip we did, we picked up one empty trailer, delivered it to the customer, and then went to Glasgow, picked up another empty trailer and brought it back. So they do a lot of what we call bobtail, right? When they just drive empty to somewhere and pick up a customer's trailer. So yeah, it was interesting, very unusual to be in that Scania. And yeah, of course, takes time to get used to sitting on the left as a passenger. I kept grabbing the wheel, like I mentioned, when I tried to adjust myself in the seat. So a truck is a lorry, a dump truck is a tipper. Typical heavy haul trailer is a low loader, I think. Of course, the lorry, to check the oil, you open the bonnet, not the hood. And if you're buying fuel for your car, you go to a petrol station, not gas station. If you say gas station, they would think that you were talking about buying oxygen or hydrogen or propane. Diesel fuel is diesel fuel. One interesting thing is that they don't use DEF or DEF. They say AdBlue. And I said, why is that? And they said, because that's the only manufacturer over there that makes DEF. And so they just use the factory name, so to speak. So, I need some AdBlue, So they don't say DEF. And what else? Yeah, a cyclist is a road rat. And I cannot think of anything else at the moment. Yeah, lorry, bonnet, trailer, axles, wheels, same. Driver, trucker. Yeah, I don't think they use the term trucker because the trucks are called lorries. Okay, one more thing I forgot to mention. They have a bunch of speed cameras which basically stand on a pole on the side of the road, and it's a box, like a usually yellow box, like a large, maybe 2 by 2 by 2 feet, and it has openings for the lens, like 2 openings. But we were driving, right? We did a lot of driving, this 9 days I was in the country. Both in their, lorry and Vitara, Suzuki Vitara, and 99% of these speed cameras were covered with a tarp, and there was a sign, not in use.
Stay in the right lane.
And John was trying to figure out what's going on. Why are they covering all the speed cameras? And my understanding was that probably they don't have enough money, because cameras cost money. You have to maintain them, right? Check the battery, replace the card or whatever they use to record videos and photos. But yeah, they have them all over the place. And actually, when you
At the light, use the right lane to turn onto 194th Avenue Southeast.
When you drive, and John was using an older version of a TomTom GPS, it was beeping every time we were, approaching one of these. Like, they're all very well marked on GPS
In about
units.
2.5 kilometers, turn right onto Silverado Drive Southwest.
Of course, here we're all used to using our phones for navigation. Like, there's so much more, up to date than a standalone GPS unit. So when I was tracking, I used this 8-inch tablet for this, and I just use Google Maps. And the other type of enforcement they do over there would be like a van, like a minivan. Usually they're yellow, and you would have a door in the back open, and so this guy would sit somewhere on the shoulder facing the direction that he wants to check people for speed for. And we saw a couple of them. They're not that common, but you can see them from far away. bright yellow van parked on the side. Like the other day when when he was taking me to the airport, there was a van, but the rear doors were facing that way, so he was doing speed enforcement for people coming from the opposite direction. So,
In 1 kilometer, turn right onto Silverado Drive Southwest.
another thing, they call trucks or lorries heavy goods vehicles, HGV, and that's the abbreviation they use. Let's say when you're driving,
500 meters at the roundabout, take the second exit onto Silverado Boulevard.
you're driving, and if there's 3 lanes on the road, of course the slowest traffic is on the left, and so HGVs or trucks or lorries are not allowed in the fastest lane, which is the one on the right. And I said, how are you supposed to know that? But then I saw that actually it was marked on the pavement, says no HGVs, no heavy goods vehicles.
Keep left.
So what's also different is that their roundabouts are usually much more complex than what you will see in US and Canada. They usually have multiple lanes, you know. I was just going through some roundabouts where I delivered this scaffolding and just thinking, you know, what else is different? And a lot of our roundabouts are just one lane, right? So the GPS tells you, okay, take the second exit, third exit, so it's pretty easy, but it gets more difficult the more lanes you have, right? And so over there, quite often, like in a town like Newcastle, as I say it, they can have roundabouts with 3 lanes, and it gets a bit crazy, and there's people coming from 4 or even 5 directions. Each direction has 3 lanes. You know, it's like, if you're in a truck or lorry,
Use the right 3 lanes to keep right onto Suvna Trail Southwest West.
yeah, it can be a bit stressful. And then the other thing I remembered is the lights. The lights are a bit unusual, is that here we focus on the green light. So when you have a green light and then it's about to change, right, an amber light would come up, right? So you have green
In
and
about 13 kilometers, keep left towards Suvna Trail.
you have green and yellow at the same time, and then there's red. Actually, wait, we also have amber, right, with the red. Because yeah, their lights change quicker. That's what my friend was complaining about when he went to Calgary some 10 years ago. He still remembers how incredibly long our red lights are. He says you have to sit there forever. Like their lights change quicker, and there's an amber light, which I now come to think of it, it's the same as here. So when you have a red, no, actually we don't have this. Basically, when red changes for green, they give you an amber. Like, why would you warn people about green? But that's what they do. So there's red light, you're sitting there, and then amber light comes on. So now you have red and amber or yellow, and that tells you that the next one will be green. And so people can start, you know, moving if you were like a few meters away from the line, you know. But yeah, I don't think we have that over here. Over here we have 2 lights, red and amber. Green and amber. Yeah, when green is about to change to red, because they are warning you that the red is coming. You have to stop, right? So it's a bit, you know, the other way around in Great Britain. So, but yeah, if you're driving there, you'll definitely get a couple of tickets before you get the hang of the system. So yeah, it's a bit unusual. But if you're in a lorry or truck, it's very difficult to get a speeding ticket. because all the trucks are governed, 56, 58 miles per hour, unless you are in a reduced speed zone, like some villages over there, they were 20 miles per hour. And John was cursing always. He says, well, this village was 30 until 5 years ago, and then some idiot complained probably, and they changed it to 20. It should be 30. And so yeah, it's a 20-mile speed zone, right? And you're doing 40, and as a camera van, you'll get a ticket. And they also have points, so you get a money fine, financial fine, plus you get points on your license. And I think John mentioned the max you can have is 12 points, and then they were gonna take your license away. Now pumps, pumping gas or petrol and fuel diesel. I'm not sure if this was because we were in a small village, but pretty much John said most places you cannot pay. There's no pay at the pump option. So when he was fueling up the Scania, when we were returning to Newcastle area from that 400-mile trip, we stopped. I think it was Shell. Yeah, I saw Shell, I saw Esso, and I saw BP from the ones I met before, or ran into before. And so his card, that corporate card his boss gave him, was for Shell. And that particular Shell had a separate pumps for cars and separate pumps for lorries for fuel. And he said you always have to go inside. So that's kind of a bit strange, right? Like nowadays with all this technology. But he parks the truck, goes inside, and I'm guessing he prepays, and then whatever he used, they take out and put the rest back on the card. And I guess that's how it works. But I used to be like that. I never liked using the machine at the pump because I thought somebody can steal the money, because there were cases like that where people will, some crooks will install a small camera over there, and when you're using your card, it would take a picture, and also it would scan your magnetic stripe. But that was like a long time ago. Nowadays you don't hear about these horror stories, because all these machines, I think, they're pretty well protected from thieves. So I rarely nowadays go inside. You just use your card. You either tap it or you put in, and then it's asking you for what's the amount you want to pre-authorize your card for. You put in, let's say, I don't know, $100, and then whatever you used, only that is charged to the card, and then you can print the receipt right there from the pump. So nobody's going inside anymore unless, I don't know, you don't have a card and you're paying cash, which is very unusual, and you're very poor, and you go and say, okay, give me 10 on 5, which means $10 on pump 5, right? One more curious fact. So basically, I do this and then I remember something else, and actually helps me, because if I keep talking, I will not remember all these points. But again, there's so much difference between UK and Canada, US. So one fact I could not believe when I heard it is that cops in UK are not armed. They don't carry weapons, which is very strange. But I guess it's good news for truck drivers or lorry drivers. So you have much less chance of being shot during a traffic stop, right? Because cops here, and especially in US, they're trigger happy. He walks over to your truck when he stops you. His hand is on the gun. Like, I never liked that. Like, you checking my, but of course, you know, like, okay, he stopped you for maybe he wanted to check your paperwork, you know? But he never knows, maybe you're some kind of a wanted criminal, you know, escaping arrest. But over there, he says, no, police don't have guns. Oh man. And all their cars are quite small, police cars, they're quite small, they use, you know, because again, petrol is 2 times the price of what we pay in Canada for gas, and diesel is like the last time I saw petrol was £1.35, and diesel fuel was £1.50 something, 57. So it's way cheaper here, 2 times cheaper here. That's why probably we don't have diesel-powered cars, because we can afford to pay, you know, for gas or petrol. And so yeah, over there, police use very unattractive-looking small cars. And I mentioned this in the other video. They don't have red lights. All police have only blue lights. So it's all blue. So if you see blue lights, it's the same as here. You have to pull over because the guy's probably either on his way to solve some crime or he's stopping you for speeding. So here, of course, you know, everywhere in North America, it's a combo of red and blue. So that's a bit unusual, you know, like if some guy was trying to stop me with blue lights only, I would just flick him off, you know, like that's not police to me. Should have red and blue. So that's kind of a bit, you know, unusual, right? So if you're a trucker in UK, you better look out for those flashing blue lights. Funny. Now another thing that's different is I did not get quite a good understanding of how their police system works, but I'm in Calgary, Alberta, and here we have 3 different types of law enforcement that you have to be aware of when you're driving your, you know, either personal car or a truck. So first off, if you were admitted into a police academy, you become a police officer, right? And so you have cars, usually Ford Explorer, all-wheel drive or 4x4 that will say police on the side, right? So those are not necessarily traffic police. They might just be cops that, you know, detectives, stuff like that. But that's the first thing you see here. They're police, and usually they're black, but they have the front doors are white. For some reason, somebody came up with this crazy design, but it's super visible, so you see it right away. White doors on a black, huge SUV, you know, because, you know, Ford Explorer is quite big, right? And then, if you didn't get accepted to police academy, you become a peace officer, which is the same deal as police, but they're nastier. And there's no talking with them, you know, they're not humans, they don't understand, you know, you cannot talk to them like to a normal human person, no sense of humor, you know, okay, stand there, go here. So a peace officer, yeah, if you didn't get accepted into a police academy. Now, if you did get accepted into a police academy, but you flunked the final exam, you become a sheriff. And the sheriff is the last kind of like law enforcement entity that can stop you on the road. So I saw a sheriff, and I saw a peace officer, and I think I also saw police. So over here, those are 3 types of bad guys that you have to be aware of: police, peace officers, and sheriffs.